And I'm back with lessons learned from reading the book of Deuteronomy. Was I about to call it Deuteronomy? And funny enough, it's not, because nobody has died, well, so far. And today I'll be sharing the lessons that I learned from chapters 17 to 20, which starts off. And now I'll just be sharing the lessons. So one of the first things that stood out to me was sacrificing defective animals to God was considered detestable by him, and this is equal, as far as I'm concerned, to giving God less than your best. So it wasn't really about the animals, it was about giving God less, something that wasn't perfect. So for me, it's like giving God the change of your time, giving him less than your best efforts, your best gifts, the best part of your heart, the best part of your day. So that's something that I kind of translated from this. I don't want to ever be seen to be giving God leftovers or change or whatever else I really don't need, you see. So another thing that stuck out to me was the death sentence for murder. The death sentence was the sentence for murder. Gosh, I need to write better. And people who practiced witchcraft, sorcery, psychics, etc., and any idolater was severe as a way. Oh gosh, sorry, I think I should just share it. Sometimes I just write these things as like bullet points and want to expand, and then when I'm reading them verbatim, I'm coming across looking stupid. So rewind. So for acts like murder, idolatry, practicing sorcery, witchcraft, people who worshipped idols, the punishment for that was murder. And even though you look at it as in, okay, somebody's just a psychic, then somebody actually killed somebody, why do they all kind of get the death sentence? And this was because it was to deter the people from following them and indulging in such acts. So I've said like several times, and I'm sure as you have read, you see that so many of these things were things that were common with the lands or the people of the lands which God had driven out and was giving to them. So it was really important for them not to sort of repeat the cycle. The importance of the witnesses in a murder case, if you remember, was to ensure that justice, and also that they had the responsibility of speaking the truth or risk getting the judgment of the accused. So it's very important here, as I saw, it reminded me of that commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor, because truly the sentencing for murdering someone was predicated on the testimony or the corroboration of the act by two witnesses. So imagine if the two witnesses, colluded to say the same thing and it was wrong. So here, the Israelites are tasked with the responsibility of always speaking the truth, especially when it was someone's life on the line. The instructions for kings was also very important. There was a section in that chapter, and they were to ensure that they stayed loyal to God, humble and not drunk with power, and keep from making political alliances with the enemies by marrying foreign wives. So that was one thing that came out. And when I read it, I was just like, Solomon did not obey this. Because to be honest, marrying foreigners always, that's a form of like alliance, because they were like, oh, you have our daughter, so you can now trade and stuff like that. And God was saying you guys are set apart. And this is something that we've actually seen whenever any sort of foreign or external influence comes into the Israelites camp or their whatever, they start to act like those people and misbehave. And yeah, God didn't want that. With regards to prophets, God promised to raise up a prophet like Moses for the people, who would speak his words to the people, and any false prophets was to be put to death, and they would know them because their prophecies would not come to pass. So that was the litmus test for knowing who was a true and who was a false prophet. There was also a plan for God to enlarge the Israelites' territory contingent on their obedience and their love and their loyalty. Now, I know that the Israelites till date did not occupy all the land that God, had for them, clearly because of disobedience, lack of love, and disloyalty. There was the regulations concerning war demonstrated that God was their commander and gave them victory. They didn't need a large army. If you remember, they said, oh, if you married a wife, you can leave. If you just bought a field and you haven't, plowed it, you could leave. And it reminds me of something else I think we're going to encounter in some of the books to come when they go to war. Where God gets victory with 300 men or something from like 30,000, because every time they announced, people kept leaving. And so we see it here. So those who had a reason not to fight or who were afraid were excused. The warfare rules for cities outside the promised land were different to those inside the promised land. So for outside the promised land, they could, take the plunder, they would kill all the men, and they could take the women, the children, and the plunder. But inside the promised land where they were going, they were to wipe them out completely. They had to, make sure that they didn't take anything. And that was significant, like I've said so many times, to just make sure that they are not, there's nothing that would help them or make them repeat the cycle of those people, because those people were detestable to God, which is why their land was taken away from them and given to the Israelites. And here's my hashtag getting to know God moment. God is patient with sinners. That is you and that is me. In chapter 17, we repeatedly hear Moses say that the evil must be purged from the land, while referring to killers, murderers, and idolaters. And in the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 5:13, Paul says similarly, but not death, right? But dissociation with them. Like the Christians were not allowed to associate with them. And that's basically just unrepentant people who just believed in their sin and were stuck in their sin. So the thing is, we're not blameless and we struggle with sin, but God is patient and gives us chances and chances and chances to repent. So at the end of the day, God is a God that is patient with sinners. He's patient with you and he's patient with me. How amazing is that? Thank you for joining me today. Tomorrow I'll be back, God willing, to share the lessons that I learned from reading Deuteronomy 21 to 23. And I hope to see you there. Bye.